Hello, hello. Everybody's fine? Good to see all of you out today. We apologize for the late delay due to some logistical problems here, but we'll get the program rolling because we'll try to get you out here before dark. That's midnight. So to get us started, we're going to ask Reverend Amina Bethel from the Methodist Communion to ask God's blessings upon us as we deliberate tonight. She walked in time, and so we had an assignment for her. But nevertheless, she is always ready to pray. So come on, give her a hand of appreciation as she asks God's blessings upon us in our deliberation tonight. And I apologize for her where she don't have a robe on tonight, but
I always say when you are a soldier, you always need to be ready. Have on your full armor. So I don't have on my armor today, but I do have on my spirit in me. So that's what's important. So let's pray. Father, we are so grateful and so thankful to you for this day, the day that the Lord you have made, and we're here to rejoice and to be glad in the day. We thank you for church and community, state, government, different organizations, but particularly those who govern the affairs of our country in the financial and the property sector of this country. We pray, O God, for the wisdom, the knowledge, and the understanding that you have given to man to be able to study and to pass on the information to others. So thank you for this evening that we have come to deliberate, to hear, to discuss, and we pray that it will be all done to the honor and glory of your name, that when we leave here, we would be much more experienced and exposed and knowledgeable as to what you would want us to do in the financial arena of our country. So bless each participant, those who will lead, and then we pray for those who are present. May we all receive it in the name of the Father, in the name of the Son, and in the name of the Holy Spirit. Amen and amen. Thank you.
thank you very much. Give her a hand of appreciation for 2 minutes notice. And so good evening again, everybody. My name is Philip Beneby. I'm the manager for Eleuthera operations here for the Department of Inland Revenue. And so we thank you for responding to our invitation to participate in this workshop today. We trust that, as the pastor said, that we will educate and inform you, and we'll have an opportunity to ask questions and close the gaps in terms of your understanding of tax matters in our country. And today, as we were doing some interviews, it seemed that a lot of persons really don't understand what the Department of Inland Revenue is about. And so I wanted to I told our deputy, I'll just give a quick little introduction, and then we get on with the program. So what does the Department of Inland Revenue do? Anybody knows? Collect money on behalf of the government, putting it succinctly. Yes, so the Department of Inland Revenue is an amalgamation of a number of Bahamian tax regimes that collects revenue, business license, first homeowners exemptions, real property tax, and value-added tax, condo, hotel tax, etc. And so I think our mission statement encapsulates the essence of what we do, administering the taxes and other public revenues for which we are responsible by law in such a manner as to achieve consistently high levels of voluntary compliance amongst taxpayers throughout the Bahamas, and in so doing, play an integral role in strengthening the public finances of our country. So, ladies and gentlemen, the Bahamas government requirement is that all vacation rental property owners register within the Department of Inland Revenue, and that all be levied the same kind of rate that is consistent with the current value-added tax threshold of revenue over $100,000 annually. Minister, I think it was Halkitis, a few months ago, he is the Minister of Economic Affairs in the Senate, said this, and I quote, "Successive administrations will tell you they need to improve the administration of taxes. The idea being that instead of to keep introducing new taxes or increasing taxes, let us just collect what is already on the books and what is out there uncollected so that it can be fair," unquote. So the DIR, one of its goals is to identify hundreds, if not thousands, of short-term rental properties as it seeks to properly regulate this industry in the Bahamas. The DIR announced in recent releases that all short-term vacation property owners, for example, need to register with the department as soon as possible. And this is a very important point, I think, because you would have heard in the news the government is moving to have a land reform. And so, in essence, moving forward, once this is properly constituted, all lands will be required to be registered. Property owners will be required to register their property. And so, if you do that now, when that bill or act is properly enacted, then you're ahead of the game. So our goal tonight is to try and inform you and help you to understand a little bit more about the tax regime of the Bahamas. And we have some very important men tonight who's going to help us with that. And batting first will be our Deputy Controller of the Department of Inland Revenue, Mr. Dexter Fernanda. Give him a hand, please, as he comes and give you a presentation. And he will be talking about real property tax. He'll be touching on a bit of business license. And then we will have Mr. Miller talk about VAT. And of course, finally will be Mr. Davis, who will talk about short-term rentals, condo, hotels, etc. Please write down your questions, and we will have a Q&A, which will spend more time in giving you some further clarity on any matters that would arise during their presentation. Please welcome Mr. Fernanda.
Good afternoon, and thank you for having the Department of Inland Revenue come to Eleuthera. And as you know, on Friday, there is the official opening of the Eleuthera office. I bring you greetings from our director, Ms. Shunda, Acting Director, Ms. Shunda Strawn, who is the Chief Valuation Officer and the Director of Inland Revenue. She will be here on Friday. So the concept for this afternoon, this is a town meeting. We're not going to spend most of the time talking. We want to hear the concerns in the question and answer period. So we will take 10 minutes maybe on the slides, and then we can go into the question and answer period related to the topic, and then we will move on to the various other topics. Is that fine? All right. So I am talking about real property tax and VAT stamp, and you might ask, what is that? So real property tax is the oldest tax in the Bahamas government system. Go through the slides. It is established in 1969, and as it talks about, it is a tax on that which is considered property, real property. And so there is tax on what is called the land. As you go around and you purchase a property, or someone gives you a property through intro vivo gift, if someone wills you in a trust, or if in death you have that what is called a deed of assent. When you go through probate, if you've given a piece of property, there is a value to that property. And how is that value handled is what the market, fair market value would be for that property. And so what that means, if something was purchased in 1967 for £10, does it mean that it's still worth only £10 now? What is happening around you? What is happening with your neighbors? Is your neighbors keeping up their land? Has there been improvement in your land? Or is there infrastructure in the land? All of those give you what is the fair market value of the land. And then just as you go to your insurance agent, there is the value of your improvement. The same way as you go for your mortgage or the lending institution to the real property tax person, we look at what is the value of the improvement. That's the structure that you've placed on there. So I'll just ask a question. Is sheetrock the same value as brick? No. Is mahogany wood the same thing as regular plywood, compressed plywood? And so as you use these different items on your property, you give the property added value. You give Spanish shingle tiles, or you want a private community where you only want certain individuals to come in. You've placed a value on what you think your land is now worth and what is the value of the property. Those two things combined, it becomes taxable. And it is the only direct tax that we have in the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. Go to the next slide. So, if we have a piece of land, what we call it, claim your part of the rock, you should at least know your real property tax assessment number. Has your property been registered? Has the property been declared? And has the VAT stamp? If you go back into your conveyances and on your legal documents that you have for your property, there is an amnesty period going on right now. Check to see if it was before 2015, if there is the registrar, the public treasury red stamp, that old-fashioned red stamp, that says that the payment was made on that transaction, on that intervival gift, on that conveyance, and on that deed of assent. That's important because we have unfortunately individuals who are in the region who are reselling the same property. I'll say it again. There are individuals reselling the same property. And the only person that is recognized by the court is the only person property that is stamped and recorded. And I say that especially with individuals who are doing what we call in-house financing. I pay the person directly for the property, and then I go piece every month. And as behemoths, you want to make sure that you secure that. And any transaction that you do, make sure that it is stamped and recorded. Now, there's something different I want to make sure that you're aware of. There is something different from your mortgage document being stamped and than your conveyance being stamped. All right? Let's go to the next slide. So you should remember your real property tax number, and you should declare your property. So let me ask you a question. If you put a generator, I know that's a big thing in Eleuthera. If you place a generator on your property, have you added value to the property or lowered value to your property? Come on, talk to me. Don't go quiet now. If you would think about investing $15,000, have you added value or lowered value? Added. And what causes that value to go up? It places something that is affixed to the soil. It then requires to be identified as an improvement. So if I have my neighbor who is doing oil change on the side of me and the oil is draining into the water table, are you adding value to that neighborhood, or are you lowering the value in that neighborhood? What happens with the rodents in that neighborhood? Is that marketable area? Does people want to move into that area? All right? And all of these things, over time, every 4 or 5 years, we evaluate zones. So what you're doing in your property and the person next door is reviewed every 4 or 5 years. All right? And so you want to make sure that you have proper title and that your documents say your name properly, not your nickname. All right? And then you need to know where your property is bounded. You're bound across the Juju tree down to the next to Miss Nixon. That doesn't help us. You need to ensure that you go to a qualified and approved surveyor, because someone might have given you a piece of someone else's property in the description. And the document should be signed at the bottom, and you know you have a proper surveyor because it would be stamped by the land surveyor for the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. All right? And so you would need to know where your property is, who you purchased the property from, know who you're engaging with, declare that to the Bahamas government, and get it stamped. So who pays real property tax? So those in New Providence pay real property tax. The advantage for the family islands is that Bahamians do not pay property tax, but you should declare your property for safety. You do not pay real property tax. Bahamians do not pay real property tax. The only individuals that pay property tax on the family islands are non-Bahamians, according to the Act of the definition of a non-Bahamian. So, you're in Eleuthera and you have an apartment, there's no real property tax. A condo, you do an investment, family joins together, there is no real property tax for you. But you need to declare your property to say that you have rights to the property and that you got building permit for that property. And so very disheartening to come to a place and find out that the person never got building approval. And I have to sign a document to have that building knocked down. I don't want to be to that step of having to knock the building down because it's not up to code. We want to make sure that we follow the instructions. The first thing is you should have gone to the local administrator who represents the ex officio for town planning, that you get the approval for whatever you declare to them. And that comes in when you have an architectural design and you tell us the value and what the structure is going to be there. And you move on. And this also saves you that know that the work that's being doing has been approved in the various phases of construction. Next slide. So we talked about it just now. There is the line, talks about over 4 years. We look at all of the information that you've given to the various banks. And we know how Bahamians go. We do not go to the bank for the mortgage at the beginning. We wait and we try save piece. So your mortgage is not your total value of your property construction. So that's why the banks have now asked you for an appraisal. And as such, the same thing we ask for the department. We ask for appraisal that is prepared for a financial institution. So a typical person, not in Eleuthera, but Auckland, would go to Bell Course, get it to where they can, and bank for a loan. So the loan is not the value of your property. We agree? The investment that you place is the loan plus what you have done. And I ask people to think of this all the time, and we're not about money hogs and getting the money. The question you should ask yourself is, God forbid there's a fire. How much would it cost you to rebuild what you've had there? And then tell me, have you truthfully declared to the insurance companies the value? So, characteristics of your area, your infrastructure, the typographical. Are you in a swamp area? Are you low-lying? Are you having flooding? All of those things affects your value. And, of course, the improvement. Next slide. All right? And so, as I said earlier, you go into the next slide. We need to remember your assessment number. We're not always the money hogs. Even with the non-Bahamian, there is an exemption for up to $300,000. There is an exemption on their home, their structure, if it is owner-occupied. If it is owner-occupied. Now, Eleutherians, I know you will be honest and tell me if the person isn't living there because I know who's cleaning their house. I know who's servicing their car. I know who's their personal chef. So you would be honest if the person always, every week, has a guest, right? Oh, wow, we went very quiet. So if you know of such a person, we have a hotline, 225-7280, and you can anonymously tell us if you know someone. It's kept a secret. It's a faraway number, 225-7280, and you can advise us. You know, it is very difficult, and we are trying to protect the image of the industry. On another island, the person is advertising this wonderful place in the Bahamas. And the minute the person comes to the Bahamas, At the airport, they get a cancellation and rejection. And when they reach the island, the structure looks nothing like the picture that's on the internet. Now put yourself in their shoes. If you were a tourist coming on visitation to, number one, see a cancellation come out, and the second thing is, what you paid for does not match the photos that you've seen. And then they come to the Department of Inland Revenue because they want to sue. And we say, well, did the person show you a tax identification number? What is the name of the person that you rented from or sent your credit card? Oh, I don't know. The credit card was processed in Germany. Well, you have to process that with your bank and start the process there because you need to know who you're doing business with. So there is that. They also have the ability for Bahamians to get a 50% discount on up to $1.5 million. Let's give it. The intent of the act is that if you're above $1.5 million in a house, you're not low income. And so the idea is to assist those who are middle income or low income. And if your house is $1.5 million and below, and you have reached the retirement age of 65 or whatever national insurance has identified you as on the card as a senior citizen, you can get a 50% discount on your owner-occupied property, not your other investments. And of course, we have an early payment. If you pay before May 30th of every year, you can get a 10% discount. March. All right? So you can go online. You can go to the next slide. You can make all of these things online. You can look at your tax statement online. You can declare your property online. Once you have your conveyance, you can submit there. Everything is by smartphone or dummy phones, they call it now. You take your phone, take your pictures, upload your documents, and we start the process. The most important thing when you declare your property, ensure you read your documents before you leave the law firm. Because some lawyers will say it's the responsibility of the client, and you need to look at your invoice on what you paid for the lawyer to do. Was the lawyer supposed to declare the property? Was the lawyer supposed to do your VAT stamping? You have to look at your invoice and know what it is that you're supposed to do. And when you submit, read your conveyance to ensure if the lawyer has said, attach an Annex A is the site plan, you can go to your page and see that there's an Annex A with a site plan. Because if you submit that without the site plan, it is rejected and you have to resubmit. During this amnesty period, the VAT stamp, up to the end of this month, you can declare properties that have not been stamped. So this was a request by many of the banks who realized that some of their clients never registered and got their documents stamped. They got their mortgage stamped, but did not get the official document, the conveyance, registered and stamped. So what the amnesty right now talks about, you go to the next slide, it allows you to do right now is to submit that document and you will pay the price that you paid, which is on the document as the consideration value at the time that it should have been stamped. So if you have a document executed in 1980 and it is not stamped or registered, so I ask people to go into their vaults and their secret places and look at your documents, look at Mummy's documents, look at Grammy documents, and make sure it is stamped. And if it is not stamped, you can have that document up to 11 o'clock, 11:59.59. If it is submitted into the portal, you will receive it at the stamped value that it should be at that time. Why? This is a great savings compared to what it says now. The Act states that you are to be stamped at the time, market value, at the time that you bring it in. So if you brought that document in now and you've placed apartments on there, if you've put a duplex on there and you've added value, you are to be stamped and declared at the value of the current fair market value. So that's compared to the difference of when you purchased it and it was only vacant land. So you can see the savings. Next slide. So here's the portal where you can do that. And there's the VAT stamp. Then there's the various options. You do not need to come into the office. You can go into any bank. You could go online or you could do wire transfers and do the transaction in the comfort of your home or your office. Next slide. All right, so we talked about it. This is indirect tax again, VAT stamp, and there's a VAT stamp unit within our department to help you to ensure that that document is affixed. So you look, please take your time, look on your documents. It should be either on the first page or the back page where you see the volume number where it's registered, and the volume page, there should be a public treasury or the Department of Inland Revenue VAT stamp. I think I've been talking long enough. That's 10 minutes. So I'll open up the floor for questions or any concerns as before I go on to business license. Any burning questions? Okay. This is tricky. One surety I wanted to say to you is if you are doing in-house financing on the Family Island, find yourself a separate lawyer to review your agreement. Do not strongly depend on the same lawyer for the buyer and seller of the transaction. I will also ask that you ask for some clear indication. If there is a default on your in-house financing, what does this mean? We are having a situation right now where there is a claim that the person defaulted on their loan, and there is no court documents to substantiate that there has been something from the developer telling that person that they have defaulted and we have taken back your property. And so the question is, who owns the property? So you want to ensure as you do those type of transactions that you have the surety that this is company, and number one, that you know who you're dealing with. You know the principal share owners of who you are dealing with, that it is a legit company. And you feel comfortable handing over your finances to that entity.
Thank you for that. My second question would be, why is it so long for payments to be processed on the portal?
On which portal?
The VAT portal.
Okay, so we'll reach to that part, but we'll reach that inside the presentation. But the general question is, how is the transaction done? Many individuals are using indirect banks. These banking systems have changed. Their platforms have changed. And someone might put an A when it should be a number. They put their business license number instead of their VAT number. And so we ask people that and if you have those type of situations, I can give you the email address, which is, what is the email address? Tax inquiry at bahamas.gov.bs. Whenever you have this situation, place your TIN in the subject matter and say reconciliation, and upload a copy of the remittance. It might just be sitting inside Royal Bank's suspense account, waiting. There is something very easy where a computer can move a 0 and someone place an O, and that does not read with one bank reading to another bank. So the main thing I want to say is keep your invoices. Keep your transactions, and if you have, after 3 days and you don't see it posted, signal the plane. Let us know that we need to talk to RBC reconciliation section and get your funds posted on time on the period, okay? So with that, I'd like the individuals from the office to stand. So we'll make them responsible. You can get used to their faces inside here, that you can talk with them, send them the communication, and we will then get that information at head office and help resolve you and Eleuthera. Yes, ma'am. Okay, so Okay, so for what we're talking about now in this section, it's called your declaration, your conveyance. So if you have multiple structures on your property, all of that, every year that you do something on the property or change something or add something, the act says you're supposed to declare it to us. It's best that you come and declare it to us until if we go out and find it there.
Okay, no, I was thinking if it's a rental property, say for example, the house is the same, I just put a door in and created an apartment inside, but the house is already existing, it's the same.
No, you have to declare that because it no longer is the same because it's no longer all owner occupied. No, we won't need a site plan. We can do in visitation. We've moved it now. We have explored you doing a complete video. We will do a Zoom video with you, and we tell you start from the beginning of the property to the end of the property. We are using different techniques to identify that, and you will identify to us exactly what portion of your property is now not owner occupied. Take the last question, and then we'll go on to business license.
In regards of commonage land
Uh-huh.
or generational property land from the settlement, we just look at registers as well, because we don't have clear title by law.
That's correct.
It's
Yes.
pulled within the, I guess, their database. So what's the process on that if we develop that into long-term or short-term rentals?
Well, in short order, there is going to be a ruling from the Office of the Attorney General as we deal with common land. That has been an issue for a lot of individuals getting clarity. Even structures that don't show clear boundaries, another building right outside the next person's window. Where does the lines and boundaries? But in short order, we are expecting, as the committee has been established, there should be, I don't want to declare what they will say, but in short order, there is going to be a ruling from the Office of the Attorney General as related to commonage. All right, so we'll go into business license. And as it says, there is the need for, if you are in civil service, that you have a business license. So if you're breeding someone here, if you're keeping someone child, if you're sewing something, and if there is an exchange of funds for that service, there you need a business license. If you are collecting funds for that service or that good, you need a business license for it. We clear? All right. So a lot of things came up inside the during the. Do you have any of the slides? During the pandemic, of new things that came about. So we see the mobile barber shop, the home-based cosmetologist. Everyone was the expert on creating masks. Those things. And we are now having to learn where the trend goes, what is necessary for that business. And it's just me, sometimes we have to look at some of the acts that we have and revisit it. We are no longer the regulator. We are the Department of Inland Revenue. And so we expect the regulator to tell us if you're approved. We have a situation in Eleuthera where the person comes, a foreigner comes, and does dental work in Eleuthera, but does not have a business license. But we only get it when the person is sick and get to the hospital because they have a swelling, because they don't know who inject their face in the hotel room. So we need to be proactive, and I give you that number again, 225-7280. If you need to just tell us when this is happening. We want to be proactive. Then when something happens, this is a good person. No, go to them. They can give you the medicine. They have it in the suitcase. No. All right? So everyone needs to have a business if you are in. The Act then says who's exempt from business licenses. Churches are exempted from business licenses. Non-profit entities are exempted from business license fees. Schools are exempted from business license fees. If you are under $100,000, you are exempted from paying business license fees. All right? So there is no fear. We just need you to have the correct documents as you are doing a service or a good. All right? So from our drone, when we put it up in the sky, the foreigner comes to us and say, I'm going to get to your question. The foreigner comes and says they are living in Tappenbing. But you just declared for real property tax that it's vacant land, so where you staying in Tappenbing? And when we put a drone, we see that you've got a 2-story building on that vacant land. All you have to do is to go to Google Earth and look at last year's pictures, and you can see what's on your property. And so we've now put in a penalty for false declaration. And for Bahamians who are fronting, there is now a penalty if you are found doing something that is not legit. So we're asking individuals to do the right thing. The first step in the business license is after you have your business plan, etc., or know what you want to do and you have your trade name, go into the local administrator and get the approval for the nature of your business and the location of your business. Once you have that, and then you go down to National Insurance and do your company registration, you have all of the necessary documents to come into the Department of Inland Revenue and do a business license. And we're trying to do it since the office is now open in Eleuthera, if we could woo and wow you and have you have your business license within 72 hours. If you submit all of the necessary, we want you to be claiming the part of Eleuthera. And so that's why we're opening the Eleuthera office. Madam, you have the question?
I didn't really have a question. I heard you say, saying something about you might have a foreigner that's coming in, maybe in the medical field, or not in the medical field, by the way, and maybe do it in-house, whatever. But there's a certain gentleman that brings in dentists to the island all the time, and dental work on plenty Bahamians. And they don't have licenses to bring these dentists in because he's a celebrity. It's just automatically.
I see that person right there behind you.
That person right there behind you? Well, call this number 225-7280 because it's illegal. Any doctor, call 225-7280. I can even give you my email. It's illegal to have any doctor that is not approved by the Bahamas Health and Safety Board to do any work. The main question, if you go into a seizure or something whilst they are doing, is that place approved for minor procedures that they know what is next to happen in case something happens to you? And the more power what I have is, why are we doing it? Why are we going to them? Free and cheap. It's more with the correction. Anyone who comes into the country must have, number one, is an immigration work permit. It's a temporary immigration work permit. Oh, okay. But if you have the number 225-7280, tax inquiry at bahamas.gov.bs, you can give us the details and we can start the procedure. All right? Rum? Rum from the back trunk? Whoa. So, a garage, that's correct. A garage sledge is what is called an occasional license. It's $25, and you're allowed to have 4 of them a year. So if you go beyond that, we say that you're in a business. More than 4 garage sales in a year, you're in a business. So you would then proceed to having a complete license. So you have an occasional license that allows you to have it up to 7 days at one time, and you can do it up to 4 times in the year. So that's a decision you have to make, if you do it. So if your church has a stakeout, they're supposed to have an occasional license. If you're bringing a auctioneer or speaker or some singer on the island, you're supposed to have a temporary business license. If you've seen last year, it's called a public entertainer. And anytime that you do a public entertainment, there is now a fee of $750.
My girlfriend works in Atlantis, but she comes over here and works for La Bougainvillea or French League. She then has to have another license.
French League needs to have a temporary business license for that transaction. That's right. So when we come in there, we need to see that. I see this big advertising right next, and it's coming back for New Year's Eve, watch night. It's $500. So how is that money getting through the central bank back to whoever is needed? If you have $500 for Janet, what is the government getting? All right? And so there was a need to crack down on this. They don't just come by themselves. They come with an entourage. And so we have to ensure that. So there was a level playing field as we deal with international laws, that if you do it for the behemoth, it must be the same requirement for foreigners who come in. And so there is the public entertainment. The minute you start advertising that event, you're supposed to have a business license for that event. All right.
I noticed that in the processing of them this year, the new system changed. You do an assessment. What all does that assessment entail?
Okay, so in the past, you would have just declared to us your previous year. So that would be your business license actuals, what you totally had from January to December of that year. Next thing is called your business license estimate for this year. That estimate at a minimum is according to the business license, last year's turnover. That assessment might happen because you changed something in it, and it causes us to review your company. And so we might have found that you are a tiler and you report more than the construction person who is in charge, who subleased you. And so it asks us to ask questions about the turnover you're declaring to us. It's not a bad thing. If you have your records for the last 3 years or kept good records, you should be able to answer the questions in the assessment. The assessment will only come if there is a discrepancy over the turnover for the compared to what you place as your estimate for 2024. You can't have $150,000 as your actual for 2023 and tell me $5. Who told me nail technician, tell me she only makes $5,000 for the year. Yet when we searched her web page, she has a booking sheet that is blocked out, and she's open Tuesday with special appointments on Sunday. And the cheapest nail, stiletto, is $165. But you tell me you only make $5,000. So should I raise an assessment, or should I let that just go through? And then when I look at and I ordered a hotel, they say, well, this is the person that we call all the time for weddings. I say, okay, tell me how much you've been paying this person who's been doing these weddings. And you still declare $5,000. And so it causes for a review of your account. So the assessment is not a bad thing. It's just for us to see if something happened. Did you change location and we need to see something, or if the figures do not add up to what it is. I think I've been talking long enough. I hope I've given some nuggets. Most important thing, 225-7280. You can call, you can email tax inquiries at bahamas.gov.bs and any of these individuals inside here, and give us some information that we need to just to help you and safeguard that which we have. The Bahamas, it's only our place, right? And we need to safeguard it. Now you say, the back of the truck, I need to meet with you, because you could tell me where all these back of the is, so we could try to get them regulated. My only thing is, if you buy something and you get poisoned today, who do you go after? You remember you don't have this in the Eleuthera. I know you don't have this in Eleuthera. There was a case, I can cut off so you don't say it on the line. So this is a new system. So there is no change.
Okay, so we're not gonna have sleepless nights and the stress that we had last year. There's nothing new that you're gonna surprise us.
So well, it depends. What caused the sleepless night for you?
All the different from what it was previously.
So this is a new system that just came into, and so it's the same system.
Is that the same thing that we did last
Same thing as you did last year.
It's the same thing that we did
The same thing as last year. All right. So
Should be easy. It should be easy.
very, very much easier. All right.
Accountant's not gonna be holding this up.
So what was easier this year is you come out, according to whatever your QuickBooks or Excel is telling us, and your accountant can later on give you the documents if they were taking long. The only thing is, we realize that there are some accountants out there that are not certified and are not part of the Bahamas Institute of Chartered Accountants who are approved to certify people documents. We're really into islands, not looking at books, and then one day you will get your accounting certification for a little amount. So we are concerned about the trends that are happening. Are people revisiting materials? The accountant is now going to the biker disciplinary board. Because if I see you ordered 4 companies and all 4 of these companies have underdeclared, it's time for me to go after the accountant, not you. Because you have a habit of not reading and not writing. All right? So it's easier this time. You can place it in, make the payment, and within 72 hours have your business license now.
Me 5 different property holders, either living in Nassau, Bullocks Harbor, Berry Islands, no one from Eleuthera, but it comes to my email
Okay.
stating that these are outstanding property taxes owed.
Okay.
We had someone make copies of them, sent them in, and I thought we can hold around 2 weeks ago, same ones coming back. Not in my PO box. I don't have any properties in Nassau, Bullocks Harbor, and Carmichael Road, and those are the ones I can remember right now.
Okay. So here's my email address. I'll give it to you afterwards, so I can check it. Unbeknown to some people, through probate court, someone might have willed something, or someone has a strong same name, middle name, and everything, and just requires us to X off the date of birth. And so we are seeing, I do apologize, we are seeing that once the system realized that they've been sending all of one time. So I do apologize. We're making some mistakes with the system. Hopefully your name isn't tied to that. The other thing is, if you are named in a holding company, if your name appears in a holding company or any limited company as a principal share owner, that bill will still be coming to you since you are a significant shareholder. So the law officers now have, if your name appears in any annual filings, Companies Act, or Registrar General, you will get the bill also. So, but I'll check with it. I do apologize for getting them, so we can get all this off. But the good thing is, you could go and claim them land. You could say, get off my property, it's my property. But we'll just make sure that it's cleared up, okay? Thank you so much. I turn it over to Mr. Miller, who will talk about VAT 19, value-added tax.
Thank you, Mr. Fernando. Give Mr. Fernando a great hand of applause. Did a great job. I mean, I learned a lot from real property tax, I'll be honest with you. But I'm going to talk about value-added tax right now, which is also another hot topic. And I'm going to try to keep it to half an hour. Do you have it? The last time I was here in Eleuthera was some time ago. I won't say when, but it was some time ago. And I think we did a presentation at the courthouse, if I remember. And there were a lot of questions because we just first started that. It was just implemented, and a lot of people had some issues with it. But since we've been in the game now for almost 10 years, everybody should be well versed with VAT right now, right? Isn't that right? Oh, no, they're not too excited. Come on, John, let's move it. What I want you to know about VAT today, right? The key legislations and the VAT terms that you need to be familiar with, which some of you already know. The value-added tax section 19, which deals with actually the mandatory registration for VAT, and everybody knows the threshold is $100,000, right? So, like Mr. Fernando mentioned earlier, if you have a business license, you're doing this, you're selling that, whatever service you're providing, if that's $100,000 a year, you must be registered for VAT. No exceptions. Now, also, the VAT Act Section 21 deals with the threshold that I just mentioned, and the VAT Act Section 24, it's an unregistered taxable person. Now, this is very interesting. This is something that came about a few years ago, and through an amendment, where you have a taxpayer who is making over the threshold and never registered for VAT. Now, two things can happen. You can come in voluntarily and register for VAT. We will still assess you. Or you cannot come in, and we will assess you and fine you, both. So guess what happens, though? When you reach that threshold and you don't register, you still become liable for the VAT. So your question might be, say, hey, I didn't collect any VAT, I didn't charge any VAT. By law, you become liable for VAT. That is very critical. You need to know that. The other thing I want to talk about is Section 47, return filing requirements and deadlines. Now, some of you may be large businesses and large taxpayers in here, or some of you may not be, but a large taxpayer is someone who makes over $5 million a year. Now, we get this question a lot. Some business may call and say, hey, I make $5 million a year, but I'm not a part of this large taxpayers program, which you probably may have heard about assembly by the Prime Minister last year sometime. The large taxpayer program actually has a concierge service for these taxpayers that we bring into the program. Not because you make $5 million and above means you're part of the program. And if you look in the Act states that two things. You must make $5 million or any other turnover amount, or at the approval of the controller on certain classification. So there are conditions there. The other thing I want you to be aware of is output tax and input tax. Now, the universal VAT equation, everybody knows output tax minus input tax is what you pay the government, eh? Now, there's some notable amendments I want you to pay attention to that was just passed in the last 3 years. The first one is mandatory registration. This is in Section 19 of the VAT Act. This one refers to a temporary business license. No exceptions. The other thing that came about is those persons who provide telecommunication services in the Bahamas. This doesn't matter what the threshold is. Like, for instance, most of us go on Facebook now, and they have like a page where you can mark it. By the way, Facebook is registered with Inland Revenue too. So they would pay VAT. In fact, they would charge you VAT, and you would know when you advertise. The other thing I want to talk about is, John, this one is very interesting, and particularly for you, most of the persons in the family, honestly, we have a lot of vacation homes. This involves persons who have rental vacation homes here, and we have a lot. We've been to Exuma, we've been to Eleuthera, we've been to the Abacos, and there are a lot of homes that are up for rental. Now, the thing about this is, if you advertise your rental, and my colleague will talk more about that later, if you are a foreign person, you must register for VAT regardless of the threshold. There's no exception to that at all. And I wanted to point this out. This is in Section 2 of subsection 2 of Section 19 of the VAT Act. The other thing that came about recently is what we call VAT withholding agents, or the introduction of VAT withholding agents under Section 23. What this is that we've had a lot of businesses doing services or providing services and goods to the government, but they were not declaring the proper registration or reporting in terms of VAT. For instance, if you provide a plumbing service, they would pay you, And most of these providers did not declare their proper turnover for the year, which stems back to business license. So guess what happened? The government decided to say, no, you know what we're going to do? For every person who provides a service to these three ministries, Ministry of Works and Utilities, Ministry of Education, Public Service, which deals with rental of government, if you're renting something to the government office, or the public treasury. If you do any service and you're on a payment of $10,000, guess what happens? They take 40% of the implied VAT from that $10,000. So, now, some of these taxpayers may not be at the threshold, but this is a way of safeguarding, hey, listen, if this person gets 10 of these contracts in 1 year, shouldn't they be a VAT registrant? So what will happen is the government will withhold 40% of the implied VAT on the $10,000 and send it to Inland Revenue. They will send it to us, and we would hold it as a credit balance to their account. Now, of course, when we do that, the taxpayer is going to come and scream, hey, you shot me. I'm not a VAT registrant. Why did you take my money away? Well, we say, okay, we're going to monitor it for accumulation of debts that you have. After that, actually, we will refund them back the 40% of the VAT, providing they didn't meet the threshold at the end of the year. Okay? Now, the other thing is I want to talk about is the accounting. Now, most of you are familiar with the accrual base and the cash basis. You do that now, and the flat rate, which applies to all taxpayers who make under $400,000. So if you make more than $400,000, you will not qualify for the flat rate scheme. The flat rate scheme is basically 6.5% of your VAT inclusive sales. Now, the VAT returns review, I'm really trying to speed up because going through every line item, this process usually takes about an hour. But since that Mr. Fernandez did such a great job and he took a lot of our time, so I got to shorten mine a little bit, right? The VAT return, this is the standard VAT return which you're all familiar with. We have lines 1 to 2 deals with the export sales, 2 deals with exempt sales, 3 deals with bonded supplies. And if you have something in the bonded supplies, and you notice that the VAT return looks a little different because we changed the system in January. So if you log on to do your VAT return, you say, this doesn't look like the same form that we had before. We did make some changes. So the changes were made to the better because we have some help buttons there that can actually help you to identify what the item is. Because a lot of persons had the question, what is taxable supplies? Well, tax supplies is basically your sales, okay? The other item here that I want to talk about is the adjustments line or the reverse charge for imported service. That comes to development. A lot of development organizations or who are doing massive projects, like the one we're doing right now in Saudi Eleuthera, the Disney project, they would bring in foreign expertise, could be quantity surveyors, could be anyone, to do the construction, you know, to build a pier or whatever the case is. If they do that, we can't stop them from doing that. Obviously, they're going to have to get the permission from immigration. And they will also, now let's say it's a foreign company, a contractor from overseas. If the contractor from overseas is doing a massive project, obviously he's going to get permission from the Bahamas Investment Authority, and then he's going to be applying for a temporary business license. And in Section 19, he must register for VAT. Hey. But let's say this person is not a major operation, and it's like a doctor, like someone mentioned, you go to a doctor because he's cheaper, and he comes over here, hey? And let's say he does this service for a particular company, and he bills them. He's not a VAT registrant, but he provided a service. So VAT attracts and services consumed in the Bahamas. So, and what this reverse charge is, this reverse charge will be the 10% of his billing that he gave you. So whoever hired him will actually have to account for this. Now, it's not going to be something that the taxpayer or you will have to pay because it's going to be an in and out transaction. The whole main purpose behind this is so the government can track what is going on. Okay? So banks use this quite a bit. Banks bring in their programmers every 6 months to reprogram whatever it is, and they do this quite often. The other item on the list is imports. Now, we talk about the output section, which deals with the sales and revenue. The input section deals with all the operating expenses. Into two sections. One is imports, and the other part is domestic. Now, we have imports coming directly in through customs, or you can have an importer service that I mentioned earlier about the reverse service charge, meaning you imported the person who provided the professional service into the country, okay? Now, when we review your VAT return, all imports must actually be paid. If it's not paid, you cannot claim it. So my advice to all those persons who import VAT on their VAT returns, when we do an assessment or review of your account, you must be able to produce every custom receipt that you paid that VAT on. The only persons who will be exempt from providing a receipt for customs are those persons who have what we call a deferred VAT program. A deferred VAT program, by the way, is only given to certain sections in the community or in the industry. If you're in the hotel industry, you can get it. And what that means is that you can bring goods into the country and you don't pay VAT at the border. But you cannot claim it on your VAT return either. So if you notice on line number 15, it says deferred VAT. So that deferred VAT, you cannot claim that deferred VAT because it's actually has to report it on the adjustment line on line number 7 on the output. So it's an in and out situation. So we don't allow you to claim any import VAT unless it's paid. Everybody's clear on that? Now, the domestic side of it, these are domestic purchases, and you all are quite familiar with domestic purchases. It can be capital as well as it can be non-capital items that you purchase. And we have the VAT that you paid on those particular services. Now, it's always been a question as how much do I put as my total supplies exclusive of VAT? Actually, you put all of your supplies. You may have something, or you may have paid someone who is not a VAT registrant, but you still include it in your supplies. The question is, on the VAT side of it, you can only put on Section 19 the VAT you paid, not what you didn't pay. So if you didn't pay someone VAT on line number 18, sorry, don't put it on 19, okay? We've had some situations like that. And we've had people try to manufacture VAT because they put 10,000 on 18, they put 1,000, and believe me, I'm telling you, we've seen it all, okay? The other section deals with the mixed supplies. Now, the mixed supplies involves if you provide two sets of services where you have a taxable service and you have an exempt supply service. A taxable service means that's something that you charge VAT on, and exempt service where you don't charge any VAT at all. Not a zero-rated service, an exempt service where you don't charge VAT at all. And guess what? We don't have any exempt goods, none whatsoever. We have a few exempt services, and those exempt services are very specific. Life insurance, we can have tuition from education, we can have interest income from your banks where you get your mortgages, but that's pretty much limited. So there's no goods. So if you're selling goods, if you're in the business of selling goods and you have exempt supplies, we know that's false. So we're going to come after you. The last item you'll notice on the standard rated return, it goes all the way from line 25, which is the adjustment line, because you can make a mistake. You can have an adjustment that related to a prior period. For instance, let's say, and by the way, we have two adjustment lines, line 7 and line 25. If, for instance, let's say you sold some goods to somebody and they returned it to you because it was default or they didn't like it, whatever the case may be, and you decided to refund them, but when they return it to you, they return it to you after you cut off your tax period, eh? At the end of the month. But you have to pay them back. But the previous month, you already paid the government VAT on that sale, hey? So what you would do with that, you will issue them a credit note or you'll issue them what you call a refund, and that VAT portion of the refund that you gave them back will go on 25. Is everybody clear on that? So because you paid the government beforehand, we're not going to rob you because, you know, we have to maintain international tax laws. We only charge you what you are supposed to pay, and we can only collect from you the same thing. So we're not going to overcharge you. Now, the other return, that's the standard rate of return. The other return is called a flat rate. I mentioned the flat rate only pays about $400,000 or less on an annual basis. The flat rate essentially is set up for mainly for the small businesses, particularly like in the family islands, where you're not required to keep purchase documents. You just keep your sales documents because we don't allow you to claim any operating inputs, but you only pay the government 6.5% VAT on your VAT inclusive sales, as opposed to paying 10%. So there's an offset there. We do allow you to claim input VAT on capital purchases because that's allowed. Now, what I want to go through here is this talks about the purchases that you can claim on your capital purchases and your sale of capital goods. You actually have to report that. But in terms of operating input, it's not allowed. Now, before I go into the questions, I want to share something with you because recently, I think Mr. Fernando hit on it. I think someone asked a question about a business license return, the annual business license return assessment. Now, what has happened is because of the change in the system, and most people don't realize that when you are paying your business license, you are actually paying your business license in advance, you know. You are paying it in advance. I don't think people realize that. You are paying your business license in advance. So what the time is say, hey, okay, you paid your business license in advance because you don't know what you're going to make, right? So we say, okay, if you don't know what you're going to make, when the end of that tax period comes, we want to know, so we're going to change it to exactly what you made. And so when you see these adjustments coming up between the business license actual and the business license estimate, that is exactly what is happening. They're making sure that you pay tax on what you actually made in that calendar year. That is really what is going on. Now, the other thing that you probably want to be aware of, and there are requirements now, and I think he touched on it in terms of accountants. We have only about 100 plus accountants approved by BICA, by the way. Not everybody. So you might have a lot of people doing accounting work for you, but not all of them are approved by BICA. I can be honest with you, so be careful. So if you have someone do a certification of your accounts and he's not on the list, we are going to reject it. All those persons this year, the threshold has actually changed. Everyone making over 250,000 now, they've increased it from, I think it was 100,000 to now 250. So we leave the small man, give him a little leeway, but anyone making over $250,000 must now have not just a certification like they did before, sign one letter and say bam, bam, bam. It doesn't work like that anymore. You actually have to do checks and balances of 7 different accounting worksheets that have been applied by BICA. It's called a business license return form. You must submit that along with what we call an independent auditor's report, not a certification report. A certification report they did in prior years was just certifying the total turnover. And so what the accountant might do, he might just come into your office and just, they say, let me see your bank account. Let me see how much sales you made. Boom, that's it. Now he's required to check everything. And anyone making over $5 million, you're now required to have an audited financial statement, which is a little different, more complex than an independent auditor's report. Any questions? I just wanted to speed that up so we don't want to keep you here too late tonight. Yes, sir.
If you leave with private equity and you have private equity coming into your company, right? Depending on the type of business, let's say hospitality, is that taxable?
If you have,
Private equity coming in, right? You have a business, you're established like as a limited corporation. Let's say you're building a hotel, and you're intaking investment from the other country, like under the BAI, right? Is that one taxable or not taxable?
you're bringing in private equity. I don't quite understand what you're saying. You're making an investment?
No, you have private investors coming from outside the country.
Uh-huh.
You have a business established in the Bahamas, and you're, for example, let's say building a hotel. Right now, your profit and loss is zero because you're just building the business. You have money coming in from, like, for example, let's say the USA, let's say it's 250,000 or to $1 million, right? Is that money taxable if they report that
The money's coming into who, though?
into the business, into the Bahamian business?
Into the Bahamian business.
Yeah, but it's not being used as, development. Sorry, it's being used as development, as capital.
Well, what is it being used? Okay, the Bahamian business is receiving $250,000.
Receiving $250 from a private investor,
For what?
but not as profit.
But what is he receiving the $250,000 for?
Pardon me?
What is he receiving the $250,000 for development? Who is doing development? Him?
The private business.
The Bahamian business is doing the development.
Yes.
But he's receiving money from outside?
Okay, let me go.
I don't quite understand.
You have a Bahamian business, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm a contractor, I'm a hotel builder, right?
Right.
I'm a limited corporation. I don't have no funds where I'm going to be selling my services. However, I have private equity coming in or investment coming in from outside the country, which is more than $250,000. Is that taxable?
But that's inflow business.
It's going to be a Bahamian business.
So if it's
Development.
no. But the key is that's inflow for the Bahamian business, is it?
Yes.
So isn't that a supply of funds coming into him?
Yes, but it's not being used, like I say, you're not providing a service.
But
it's
it-
not a service.
No. But he's receiving an inflow of $250,000.
Yes.
So we need to be clear on that. He's receiving that.
Yes.
So he's receiving that to do some service?
No, he's just doing development. He's not using
No. But you can't be receiving money just to do development. He's receiving that because he's providing a service or he's getting something from it. So what is he getting from it?
You're not getting,
No. I don't believe that.
help me follow.
I don't believe that.
Let's say you have an angel investor there.
Doesn't matter who's investor.
It doesn't matter.
No, it doesn't matter. If you are receiving inflows from where it's coming from, no, what I'm saying, it doesn't matter where the inflow of cash is coming from, whether it's coming from overseas or it's coming from Andres, and it's coming into your business, that is a registered business. You are receiving inflow of cash. Isn't that right? Okay, so you're receiving inflow of cash, and guess what happens from a business license standpoint? When you file your business license at the end of the year, that inflow of cash is reported as turnover. Yep. As turnover. So it becomes taxable.
I'll review that. All right, that's all I wanted. Let's be devil advocate, just to find out more.
Okay. No other questions? Okay, let me just say something. There was an amendment. In fact, there was a repeal, is that the right word? Repeal of the Business License Act. So we have a new act, 2023. In that repeal of the Business License Act, they have implemented a couple things. One called for exclusions, which we allow certain companies to exclude, and one called mandatory inclusions. If you may have looked at the business license return form, you would have seen something on tab 3, or sheet number 3 of the worksheet prepared by the accountants, that talks about inclusions and exclusions. The mandatory inclusion makes specific address to inflows of deposits received by any taxpayer to be taxable. In other words, let's say I have a construction company, right? And someone gave me a contract to build a place for $1 million, and he gives me $100,000 mobilization payment in November. Right? I don't start the job until April. Guess what? That $100,000 he gave me is included in turnover for the year 2023, or in this year, 2024. You follow me? Even though he doesn't use it until next year. So I'm coming back to the same question. You're talking about receiving $250,000 just for this or just for that. The money is coming into your account, flow of cash, and turnover. This is a change in the Business License Act for 2023 that talks about mandatory inclusion. It's not an option. Mandatory inclusion. Let me give you another example of a mandatory inclusion. You know, some companies issue credit cards, not credit cards, gift cards. We all buy gift cards, right? So we have companies in Nassau that do quite a bit of gift cards. They issue out $50,000 worth of gift cards. Only about 10,000 of those are used within the year. But guess what? That $50,000 worth of gift cards for that year has to be included in turnover, whether it's been redeemed or not. Now, the new Business License Act doesn't follow accounting principles for those people who are accounting minded. It doesn't follow the International Financial Reporting Act. It doesn't follow the international standards of accounting. But it's been changed for specific reasons. Now, the accountant can make the adjustment in the following year based on the gift card that has been received. So there is a mechanism in place for that. But if you receive it, whether you utilize it or not, it becomes a part of the turnover.
So you say go towards my turnover. However, it's not being kept within the company. I need to understand that part. That's a question I can ask you later.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, I'm going to bring my colleague, Mr. Davis, here. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. Good evening, everyone. My name is Steve Davis. I am the Condo Hotel Tax Manager with the Department of Inland Revenue, and I recently took on the short-term vacation rentals unit as well. All right. As we wait on the transition into condo hotel tax, so let's just look at what you would consider a condo hotel unit, right? So a condo hotel, as the name implies, it looks like a hotel on the outside. As we know, hotel has rooms, and so the condo hotel has condos, condo units. That's the difference right there, right? Okay. There are two parts to the condo hotel, right? Who it's applicable to, the condo hotel tax. So what happened in July 1st, 2022, get it coming up? So July 1st, 2022, the Hotel Act was amended, July 1st, 2022. And as a part of that amendment, there's now condo hotel tax, applicable to all condo hotels and rental pools, right? So this is the condo hotel tax guide. I would have given everyone a copy, and so those are the two parts. Remember, condo hotel, the building on the outside, it looks like a hotel. Each condo within that building is individually owned and the amenities are shared, okay? So enforcement, effective the 31st of July, 2023, all condo holders within a hotel rental pool will be required to pay a tax called condo hotel tax, right? Condo hotel tax is payable by January 31st of every year. So we normally send out the bills in October, and you get to make the payment by the end of January of the following year, okay? Again, condo hotel and hotel rental pool, the Department of Inland Revenue considers a condo hotel to be a condo that operates like a hotel a property with several individual owners, so all of us would be owners, right? Owning each unit and sharing amenities, right? So those amenities can be a gym, they can be a movie theater, it can be a water park, whatever amenities are at that hotel is shared by all of us. But the units are individually owned, right? Hotel rental pool, so that's a condo hotel. Hotel rental pool, the definition. Hotel rental pool means any collective rental arrangement, by which properties not owned by a hotel form a part of a hotel's bedroom inventory. Go on to the next slide, please. All right. Condo hotel tax. So when we send out the notice of assessment for a condo hotel tax, we send out a bill. How it works is when you rent out the condo hotel, the net VAT is the difference between, Mr. Miller would have said what the output side was and the input. The difference between the outside, what you output, is what you collect, and the input is what you would have paid on items as you got, as you made purchases throughout the year. Bill, power bill, your light bill, cable bill, all those shared amenities. The input is what you would take away from the output VAT. The output VAT is the VAT charge on the rental revenue. So whatever you charge per night and you charge the 10% on that, that's the output, right? The bills that you pay, the VAT that you pay on those bills is the input side. So you take away the rent, the VAT charge on the rent minus the input, and that gives you the net, right? Whatever that net amount is, you take that away from the bill that we would have sent you. If the net VAT is more than the assessed amount, you only pay the difference. I know it's complicated, right? Okay, let's move along. Okay. This is a practical example of what the condo hotel tax and how it works, but I'm going to take you to the return. Let's go to page 7, which is going to clear it up a lot for you, right? So each condo unit has, page for me. Each condo hotel tax unit completes a return. So at the very top it says, unit owner name, the hotel, condo hotel that you are a part of, or a rental pool. Remember, it's two sides. You can be a part of a condo hotel or a hotel rental pool. So section A would be your personal information, the unit owner. It would tell us the hotel name that you're participating in, and then the declaration period. The declaration period is from January 1st to December 31st every year. So it's a 1-year declaration that you're making on the return. Section B talks about the assessed condo hotel. It's based on the value of the condo, and you pay 75% of the residential rate, okay? So if we go into all those calculations, that's going to be complicated, right? But that's how that is how the estimate is calculated. The department condo hotel tax estimate is 75% of the residential rate multiplied by the assessed unit value, okay? Section C, this is where I talked about the output, trying to calculate line number 7. So we give you, the Department of Inland Revenue, we provide line 1 and line 2, which is the value and the assessment, right? Then in section C, VAT payment summary, was the unit rented during the declaration period? Yes. If it was rented, then you continue. If it was not rented, you move down the next section because there's nothing in there that you have to complete, right? So if yes, total number of nights unit was rented during the declaration period, right? You would put that there, whatever that amount is, and then the total revenue earned during the declaration period, right? This is how much you rented the condo for in a year's time. So that is line number 4. Then we get to number 5. Now, number 5 is based on line number 4. You know the VAT rate is 10%, right? So you take 10% of the revenue, and that gives you the total VAT charge during the declaration period. When we reconcile these, we know the VAT rate is 10%, so it has to make sense. It has to add up. Line 4, 10% of line 4 gives you line 5, the VAT amount. That gives you line number 6, which is so that gives you the output side of it, to line number 6, which is the input side of it. This is so you look at a hotel, there's one electricity bill, one cable bill, one water bill, right? All of us are unit owners, and so that bill is apportioned to every unit based on your square footage in the building, that sort of thing. And so the VAT charge on that bill for water, light, cable, what have you, you would put in line 6. You deduct line number 6, the input away from the output, and that gives you the net VAT. Everyone's clear so far? On the net VAT, the output minus the input gives you the net VAT, right? So then you go on to section D, which is the condo hotel tax payable, trying to arrive at the final amount that you send to the Department of Inland Revenue. So you have line 2, which is the assessment that we send out to you at the end of the year. You deduct out what was calculated in line 7, the net VAT paid, right? Again, if you paid VAT over the period of the year, more than the bill that we send you at the end of the year, you pay no additional money, right? Because it's going to be a negative number, right, in line 8, and there's no negative money. It starts from 1 cent forward, right? So that's how condo hotel tax work. Again, condo hotel tax applies only to condo hotels or a hotel rental pool. Those are the only 2 parts for condo hotel tax, okay? Then the administrator who manages the money, who collects the money for you renting out your unit at the hotel, right? The building, they manage the entire building. They will send us a summary for every unit in that building, right? Telling it against what you would have provided in your unit owner return. So this is a summary of what every unit owner would have provided, okay? And so that's condo hotel tax. We are now going to transition into, I know it's a lot, so I'm going to give everyone the guide, which is going to make it a lot clearer, because it's a lot to cover, and I know you've already taken in a lot tonight. All right, so we're going to transition over to rentals. These are some exciting times to be in the Department of Inland Revenue. We have a lot going on, a lot of new initiatives. And so short-term vacation rentals, I know that's what everyone is here to hear about tonight. As of, go back to the very beginning. Yeah, okay. So the Department of Inland Revenue, as of March 1st, 2023, have been asking a lot of individuals to register their short-term vacation rentals. Sit on Airbnb, VRBO, that sort of thing. We're trying to have you register so we know who's out there, what's going on. For example, if you go to Expedia and you do a search, If you want to stay in Eleuthera, you're going to see all of them come up, a whole list of them if you do a search on Expedia when you have some time, right? And so we're trying to find out who owns these properties. Is it up to par, that sort of thing, all those sorts of things, where they are, that sort of thing. So why register, right? Why register your short-term vacation rentals? So here's why you should register. To become officially recognized by the Bahamian government, to become eligible for funding. That's key right there, right? So, and then again, there is no, for the year 2023, there was no business license or registration free. Registration is free, right? And then get free advertising and promotion for your business. So the Ministry of Tourism promote the Bahamas, and so you want to be a part of that. You also want to receive notifications about what is happening in the tourism industry. And so once you register, they have your email address and they can provide communications, notifications to you, that sort of thing. And so those are the benefits of registering. You don't want to miss out on any upcoming funding that you can possibly obtain just because you didn't register and you were not included in the communication. So short-term rentals, let's go. Okay, what has happened? So a business license is required for the rental of residential properties that are owned by, and there's two parts, non-Bahamians, right? International or foreign persons, and Bahamian corporations, right? Primarily, those are the two areas of focus at this time, non-Bahamians and Bahamian corporations. Limited liability require a business license. So if you have a rental property that you're renting short-term, and it's foreign owned, you need a business license. Non-Bahamian, notwithstanding the threshold requirement, which is normally $100,000, a non-Bahamian who operates a vacation home rental is required to register for value-added tax. And Mr. Miller would have said, Section 19 of the Value-Added Tax Act, mandatory registration. He had it up on the screen. You can review it at your convenience. Mandatory registration, non-Bahamians, okay? Bahamian owners are only required to register for VAT if they have met the registration threshold, presently $100,000 or more. Okay, so that's who is involved, who is affected, short-term vacation rentals. Let's go again. Now, a Bahamian would register once they meet the $100,000 threshold for business license and value-added tax, okay? Effective the 1st of March 2023, all property owners operating their properties as short-term vacation rentals will be in the short-term portal, okay? We will be providing that address if you don't have it already. The operation of a commercial rental establishment is a taxable activity, okay? You're carrying on a business comprising a taxable supply of services, and where the operation satisfies the registration threshold, owner of such establishment becomes a taxable person required to register as such under the Act. Okay? So let's talk about the definition, commercial rental establishment. Because we said all commercial rental establishments, non-Bahamian and owned by a corporation, has to register. So let's define now commercial rental establishment. For the purposes of the Act, these regulations and VAT rules, a commercial rental establishment includes accommodation in a hotel, Residential accommodation of any kind which constitutes an asset, including a lease asset or a business undertaking or a separately identifiable part of a business undertaking carried on by any person who, you have to sign the agreement when you go to lease the unit, whether you get it on Airbnb, VRBO, whether you have leases or holds for lease in the course of such business undertaking the accommodations as residential accommodation. And in respect of each occupant regularly or normally for lease the accommodation as residential accommodation, right? For continuous periods not exceeding 45 days. That is key right there, right? Continuous time not exceeding 45 days. You would qualify as a short-term vacation rental, right? C, residential accommodation in a condo, timeshare, or house acquired by a non-resident under the International Persons Land Holding Act, where the permit specifies that such accommodation will be used for rental purposes. Okay? So if you're non-Bahamian, you have to get approval from Bahamas Investment Authorities, a permit, and the purchase of the property. All right? Any other accommodation also that the minister may by order designate as a commercial rental establishment. So that defines what is a commercial rental establishment. Next slide. Okay, so the following link will take you to the registration portal for short-term vacation rentals. You want to take note of this. This here is very important. This is where you go to register for short-term vacation rental. This is separate from registration for a business license, okay? This is only to register to say you have a short-term vacation rental property. I would have provided a handout at the entrance on how to register for a short-term vacation rental. I think everyone has that. It's a 12-step process. You register for online services, and once you complete those 12 steps, then you go on to continue to register for VAT and business license. I'm going to open the floor in over an hour, and so, yeah. Questions, short-term vacation rentals or condo hotel tax? Or any other question that you have? The floor is now open for any questions at this time. I know we've covered a lot of information, so questions at this time?
So we need to get information out, particularly persons who are engaged in this kind of work, so that they can have the information and be able to help themselves as well as the customers of the people that they serve. And I always try to figure out, how do you know all these people that have rental units? Because everybody is renting from their house and renting from their wherever else they have. And I didn't know if the police and land revenue or licensing know where these people are. So I'm glad you said something about a Zoom, so now I know that. That's tonight for sure. But yeah, it has been one of my concerns, because a lot of people are gaining revenue from this country and taking their money out. They're not leaving their money here. We who live here and have rental units or whatever stores and are paying VAT license fees and whatever else, the money stay here. So I'm glad to hear that you are going after those persons, and I wanted to know how you were able to track them down. So continue to track Mr. Neely, Officer Neely at ASP Neely, through the police department and collaboration with these different agencies, so that, I look at it like this. it's not it's not all about the money. It's for our generations to come.
Amen.
You know, so what we leave in this country with license fees or whatever, it's going to go to our children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren. And so we know the money's going to stay here. It's not going to go out the country unless you intend to leave the country at age 60-something when you retire to go where. So it should be staying home. So I'm grateful this evening to be present here and great information. As usual, I tell my church, we always sing to the choir. Those are the people who are always there. We need to go after and get the word out to persons who need this information. Eleuthera is a place that has so much business, entrepreneurs on this island than any Bahama, any country, any island in the Bahamas. So we need to go after getting the money to benefit all of us. So thank you this evening for being present and the information that you are giving to us.
And thank you for participating. If there are no further questions, I will now turn it back over to Mr. Barnaby.
Thank you very much. Give them all a lovely hand, please, of appreciation. I hope that you have been enlightened, and we're not going to keep you any longer. We have another session in Rock Sound tomorrow, so if you feel like coming over there, if something hits you tonight, Mr. Dex is available. You better catch him now. You know, he's full of information. But we'll be in Rock Sound at 4 o'clock to 6 o'clock. And then on Friday, from 3 to 5, we're going to have a big tent in the Bayfront Park there, so we want to come. We're going to have music. And so after that, if you want to stay and dance the night away, you can do that as well. We'll have a DJ there.